right, we'll kick it off. And how are we doing it for who's getting the first pick then? You're just going to be nice and give it to me. We go in alphabetical order, and now Blofis comes before Wanek, or how are we doing this?
I think you're in the captain's chair, so you're liking Captain Phillips. You're the captain now, so you would take the number one pick.
There we go. Which obviously number one pick is always going to be big, but that looms large in Wahpeton football history for anybody who's followed it, who wants to be objective about it. There's nobody else that this could be other than Ryan Smith, of course. Best running back to come through school history, and when it's basically been running back you for Wahpeton, got to go with the guy. Best definitive football player, a professional football player, graduated from Wahpeton, and his resume is just absurd. Obviously, very successful career at North Dakota State, and his video game stats got him, just craziest resume. If you want to list off some of the stats as I swipe the greatest running back of all time from school history from you, Robert.
Yeah, we'll take I think there's a couple more running backs to be had yet, but we'll take there's only one Ryan Smith.
Yeah.
We'll take his junior and senior year here. 2,135 rush yards as a junior, 2,781 as a senior. We talk about getting to the coveted 2,000 mark, and he's knocking on the doorstep of 3,000. And of course, an Old Spice National Red Zone Player of the Year. We've had a couple EDC Players of the Year, Class 2A Players of the Year. Only one of them has basically been an All-American, and that is Ryan Smith.
And, that 2,781 rushing yards, obviously incredibly impressive at any level, but some might say it's even more impressive to run for 2,135 in the top class of North Dakota. That's like against all the Fargo schools. So all the more impressive running for 2,000 yards against the best competition in the state.
Absolutely. And I think the thing about the best running backs, Turner, the best athletes, is that they make the impossible look easy. And I texted my buddy, first baseman on our softball team, shout out to Justin Manning, the Sycamore Tree. I asked him, I didn't see a lot of Ryan Smith in person. I've been watching the highlights. I said, what should I be looking for? He said, it's really pretty boring. Toss play to the outside, one cut, 80 yards.
Yep.
And that just speaks to his speed. Nobody could catch him.
Yep. And we'll make sure to loop in some of Mr. McCall's interview that we had done previously, kind of just some fun academic stuff I told him I wanted to do just to kind of get some insight from him.
We played West Fargo that year. We beat them 9-6. We gave the ball to Ryan Smith 42 times.
Yep. Gilby and I were talking about that on the coaches show. I was joking and saying it was 60, but
it was 42 like times, 60. and actually because we played Bismarck Century in the state playoffs that year out in Bismarck, and Bismarck High played right before us, and Coach Gibson out there, he and I joke around a lot, and he came up to me after their game, and he jokingly told me, he goes, I want you to know that I turned you in for, he goes, 42 carries. He goes, that could be considered abuse, but. I dare somebody to tell, and I tried once. We took Ryan's helmet away on defense a couple times, and he always found a helmet that fit, and he always ended up back on the field.
Oh, my Lord.
Keeping that kid off the field was almost impossible. But
he said that the big thing for Ryan was his back cuts. Like his cutbacks were incredible. He said that's what separated him from everybody else was he just would teleport, it seemed like, how fast he was. So all of a sudden, everybody else is 30 yards between them. And you Wahpeton fans were spoiled because you just go to games where like, I guess we're just going to go watch Ryan run away from everybody. It's crazy to me.
My favorite Ryan Smith story, and maybe Mike McCall will touch on this in the sound bites, is they got a bad snap on a punt or something, and Mike was yelling at him, punt it. And he just took off to the outside, ran for a touchdown, and he said, I thought you said run it, coach.
Ryan was our punter. And I just hollered out. I said, he kind of came over a ways. I go, punt it left. Next thing I know is snap, and he takes off running. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around trying to figure out who called what. Well, he got about 25 yards on the play. And I called him over, and I go, what was that? And he goes, you said run it left.
Oh, no.
I said, okay. And Luke Baumgartner was standing there, goes, didn't you say run it? Because that's what I heard. Because Luke sealed the end.
Yep.
And it's like, nope, not exactly what I said, but we'll take it.
Yeah,
well,
we'll take it.
We went down and scored and ended up winning. I think it was 34-30 or something like that. And after the game, I was talking to Ryan, and I said, no, I said punt it. And he goes, oh, sounded like run to me. And then you got all these people coming up thinking you're a genius, and no, it was purely accidental.
Yeah, quite the gamble there, coach.
But it was after that I told Ryan, and I said, as long as you and the end are on the same page,
Yeah.
I said, if you see it's open,
Go rogue.
take it.
Yeah.
And preferably not on 4th and 21 again.
And just had the ability to change the game. And I'd just like to touch on a couple more of his stats here before we get into my first pick of the draft. And, Ryan went on to NDSU, and the big thing there, back-to-back national titles at the FCS level. So 3 straight championships for Ryan Smith. He is the all-time record holder for punt return yards at NDSU with 945, second most punt return tutties with 3. He's 4th all-time with 147 catches. And then he goes to the CFL, plays pro football in his peak year in 2019, 991 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns, and a backflip catch that we'll throw in here. That was the catch of the year in the CFL.
One going to throw. And he'll take a shot. Ryan Smith puts it down. A huge catch for Ryan Smith in front of Matt Black. And disbelief in the crowd.
Yeah, the kids in the front row gave it the OMG on this catch. Ryan Smith sells out and comes down with it well covered, and he just sells out, puts his body on the line to make the catch, and it's a beauty.
Incredible career for Ryan Smith.
Yeah, and pretty much everything he was doing, he was one of the fastest guys doing it for sure on the field. I think he took a kick to the house as well during his time at NDSU, so that was super fun to be able to follow his career. But obviously, he was going to end up being our number 1 pick, and you're not going to find anyone that's probably going to argue that. But who are you going to lead off to kick off your team, Robert?
So we'll go running back right away. And I'm going to go, my team will be a little bit more modern. I would like to thank Wahpeton for kind of adopting me into their sports community. You're
their booster of the year, my God.
I was their booster of the year. I hail from the east side of the river, and I actually did not broadcast a single game that winter because my son was born, and they still gave me booster of the year. So shout out to Mike McCall, who was AD when I started reffing basketball in Wahpeton. And for those of you that know me, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. And he always made sure I didn't forget my check in the coach's office when I left from officiating. And shout out to David Woods as well, who he's been a really good teammate in coverage for Wahpeton. But my pick, I'm going to go with Trey Mauk here at my number 1 pick here for running back. And I know Ryan had 1,000 yards more in his peak season than Trey did in his, as Trey ran for over 1,700 as a senior. But I still view these guys closer to a 1A, 1B than I do to a 1 and 2. I think Ryan maybe played on some better teams as well. And I think his top end speed made things a lot easier for him because he was just that much faster than everybody. But I do view these guys a lot closer. And I think that comparison is the thief of joy. So what I saw out of both these guys is greatness. Sometimes it's just better to leave it at that. I think for pretty much any school, they would be the GOAT, so I Ryan, number 1, Trey, number 1B for me. And what I like about Trey is we talked about the Heidemann boys at Breck, Tommy and Jack punching above their weight. I think Trey took that to another level, 5'9", 145 probably, but he would rearrange your face mask, bust your teeth in.
Running backs in the backfield here. It's going to be a handoff to Mauk. He's got to avoid some tackles to the left side. He does. Cuts it up the middle. Mauk on his feet. Stiff arm. Get off me. Down the left sideline. Lays the boom. Mauk tackled out of bounds inside the 10-yard line. Oh, my goodness. A flag at the end of the play.
I mean, he ran like a Mack truck. He ran really hard. And the other thing about Trey that really stood out for me was he was able to dance around the defense a lot of the times, didn't have to use that power. But we saw Ryan be kind of more of a back cut guy, maybe a one cut and gone. Trey would get in the hole. They would stack the box against him, go out of the shotgun. He'd be the only man in the backfield. Everybody knew he was getting the ball. He would get into that second linebacker level, and he'd make 2 or 3 jump cuts, and all of a sudden there'd be 6 guys army crawling on the ground looking for him, and he's gone. So the whole defense would stay still, helmets bouncing off each other, and it was just amazing what he could do, just bottled up in a little capsule and just kind of dance around the defense.
I remember hearing some good things about him from the coaching staff going into his junior year, because he just had a really, really, really good sophomore year. But junior year, he was going to get kind of some more thrown on his plate. And they were talking him up already one of the all-time running backs. And I was like, oh, okay, guys, let's just pump the brakes here. One good season as a sophomore is great, but that doesn't guarantee that there's going to be 2 more good ones. And I went to his week 1 game, and I did get 3 TDs that week. And I was like, they know what they're talking about. He's incredible. He looks so good. And like you said, we're punching above his weight. And this is not a slight at all, but I brought him in for an interview. I remember him coming in. I was like, you don't exactly look how I expected. I don't know. You
don't look like a feature back.
Yeah. A little smaller dude than maybe I expected. And then I was just like, okay, like, cause I see how physical he also is, like obviously very fast, but, I'm, like you said, kind of punch above the weight. I thought that was perfect.
Let's talk about his numbers really quick before we get into your next pick, because like you said, a great career. Sophomore year, kind of busts onto the scene, 1,578 all-purpose yards, 881 rush, led the EDC with 2 return touchdowns. We're talking about Fargo and Grand Forks schools, 5 interceptions on defense, 77 tackles. Goes into his junior year, over 1,200 all-purpose yards, 15 touchdowns, 780 rush, and this is where he emerged as a receiver, 422 receiving yards. That was 3rd in the EDC out of the backfield. And then his senior year, man, he handled 213 carries at 5'9", 145, nearly 1,800 rushing yards, 23 touchdowns, and he had 103 tackles at linebacker. We're talking about that dog in him. And then the big moments, 388 yards and 6 touchdowns in the state quarterfinal at Valley City. That was Wahpeton's first playoff win in over 10 years, and it tied Ryan Smith's records exactly for yardage in a game and touchdowns in a game. Then they went on to the state semifinal at number 1 undefeated Grand Forks, lost 35-22. He went for $140. And maybe the biggest one of all is he authored the Mauk Miracle, the game-winning touchdown catch to upset Valley City at home that looked exactly like the Minneapolis Miracle between Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs. They sent him out. There was like less than a minute left. Sent him out on a wheel route, and they were playing a prevent zone-style defense, and he got right in the only spot between the defenders on the sideline. Bjorn Kubala put a dime on the money. Mauk went up, caught it in the air, and was a freak athleticism. He was able to shift in the air and land. Both defenders kind of converged in between them, and he took off for a touchdown, game-winning touchdown. And, that's one of the best moments in Wahpeton sports history, the Mauk Miracle. So Trey Mauk definitely deserving of being in the conversation of greatest all time. And since you went and sniped Ryan Smith off the board, I had to make sure that I got Big Play Trey, because I'm definitely a card-carrying member of the Mauk fan club.
Oh, yeah, and that is maybe his defining moment, his big moment, but I know that a lot of players, I've had multiple in here who have said that was their favorite memory from playing for Wahpeton, so that was fun to relive that again. That was a really fun year. Really good offense that year, overall, not just him, but...
And I got another big thing for me here is all these good players, they really make a small community believe, like, bigger than sports. And I'm wearing my Wahpeton Post 20 state title ring here. You can make fun of me for it maybe because I didn't play, but I like a little self-deprecation anyways. But when he did that in the state semifinals, ran for nearly 400 yards on the road, and then they went into number 1 Grand Forks Red River, who they had lost to 34-28 earlier in the year. Trayton Mauk really made me believe that Wahpeton could potentially play for the Dakota Bowl. And if it wasn't for Thomas Kraft running for 255 in that Grand Forks game, Wahpeton would have been in the Fargo Dome. So he made the whole town believe and get behind the football team, and that just kind of adds to his aura.
I think I think it would be a lot worse to decline a Post 20 ring. I think it's a lot better to accept and wear it, because that shows the camaraderie. I would take that over you being like, why would you offer me that?
There's probably more where this one came from. Just
there
at the time.
I hope so. And so let's move on to pick number 2. And I'm gonna, I got my running back taken care of. I might just be fine now, but someone's gonna hand it off to him, I guess, and maybe he'll do some running as well. As I'm gonna take Carson Zarek as my quarterback, and I had one EDC Senior Athlete of the Year already with Ryan, and I'm gonna throw on another one with Carson Zarek. My first year covering Wahpeton for Wahpeton Daily News was his senior year. And I already knew he had a really good reputation. Got to see it up close, him tear up the Wahpeton game as a sophomore, actually playing a wide receiver before he took over at QB his junior year. Won that one as well. But I would always call him like a little Wahpeton Johnny Manziel. It was like watching him because he was just so electric. And the first game I watched him, I was like, this guy's gliding out here. And it seems so effortless. And can make guys miss, really good moves in the open field, would break free, great speed, obviously, but also very physical runner. Could have been a 2,000, or I think he was, could have been a 2,000-yard rusher if he was Saloniac full time, but was handling the QB duties. And like I said, when he was Senior Athlete of the Year, he ran for 1,003 rushing yards, 20 touchdowns on the year. Monstrous. Throwing for 18, 2,191 passing yards as well. So not too bad there as well. He was a 2-time All-State selection, had a lot of really good receivers his junior year. His senior year was a lot more impressive, kind of overall. I think his passing numbers were almost identical junior to senior, but like I said, loaded with receivers, and then went on to have a good college career at MSUM as well. So what were some things that, or maybe that you thought Carson thrived at QB?
Well, in high school, you don't really see elite dual threat quarterbacks. You get the tag gets thrown around way too much. There might be a guy who does some RPO and that's his shtick. Or there's a guy who passes, but he can scramble under pressure. Not a guy who can do both at an elite level. It is very rare, which is where the Johnny Manziel hype comes in for Carson. And, maybe throw a pick here and there trying to push the envelope, but that was his MO, desperado, baby. Push the ball downfield. We'd see him, 13 for 27. Maybe he's under 50% completion in a game. I saw a couple of those articles. 272 and 4 touchdowns through the air. So, it's a go big or go home with Carson Zarek, and that makes him one of the greatest highlight players of all time. And the numbers don't lie. Definitely one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
The line that always stands out to me was when I was talking to Coach Dawkin about his time here and just kind of comparing, kind of the identity of teams and stuff like that. And obviously you have to point out Carson, his junior and senior, because he set the tone for the group with their spread offense. And the first thing he said, he goes, well, Carson Zarek, coach's dream for a quarterback. He's going to do everything you want of him. So whether, and like you said, dual threat, he just makes your offense that much more dynamic for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we have yet to see a dual threat quarterback in Wahpeton play at an elite level with both running and passing like Zarek did, and it may be quite some time before we see it again. And it's one of those players where you say the way he played, nobody's been able to match it. There may be quarterbacks who have had better seasons, but his style is his style. So that's his calling card, and people are going to be talking about that for years to come.
Yeah, it was almost a bummer when he was playing defense at MSUM. And, I love defense, so I do get excited when I get to see guys I like to play defense, play on that side of the ball. But at the same time, it's like, if only we could still kind of get to see him do the little Johnny football thing, but whatever. But
yeah, 4th on MSUM with 41 solo tackles in 2019, and he returned a fumble for a touchdown. And like I said, it's not very often that somebody goes on to the next level and, is more than a role player. It's just the reality of college football. So to go out and carve out a role and be a top 5 tackler for the Dragons, who have had a really nice football program, especially recently, that's big time.
Yeah, we might see another former Dragon on this list as well, but I think you might be going QB as well,
I got to go QB because I got to get another elite one off the board here.
Before I take another QB.
Yeah, I got to be competing here. I've spent many years in fantasy football waiting until the late rounds to draft a quarterback, and it's never turned out good. So I'm going to go with Blake Schaefer here. Blake Schaefer, much more of a pocket passer than Carson Zarek. Senior year 2021, Schaefer went for 2,760 pass yards, 32 touchdowns through the air, both school records. Previous school record was 28 passing touchdowns by Carson Zarek. So Blake Schaefer took the crown there. He also scored 5 touchdowns in the team's first win over Grand Forks Red River in over a decade. Another moment that can change the face in the landscape of a program. You get beat up by the Rough Riders for 10 plus years, and then you come in and your quarterback torches them for 5 touchdowns, and it's like Wahpeton has arrived. And Wade Gilbertson, bringing that West Coast offense, spreading it out to Wahpeton, was a beauty to watch. And Schaefer had a lot of skill players, but you still got a guy who can get them the ball. He was also a Powerade outstanding senior athlete. And my big thing about Blake Schaefer was he could make all the throws. So that's why they were able to utilize him. When they'd run the Mauk out of the backfield, he would hit him in motion, use his speed. When they put Ulick on the Tori Ulick slant route over the middle, same thing. He could just put the ball, lead the receivers. And then when you're talking about the end zone, very rarely did he throw an interception. So it was either going to be incomplete or it was going to be caught by Caden Kappas in the back of the end zone because he would put the ball exactly at the high point where it needed to be. And another guy with Carson Zarek, who is just an absolute gamer. So Schaefer's ability to go deep was big too. 88-yard touchdown pass to Kappas. I'll have to check the numbers on this, but potentially the longest passing touchdown in Wahpeton history. And just the way he shredded teams, multiple touchdowns every game that season, I believe. And again, 32 passing touchdowns in a high school football season. do the math, that's like over 3 a game, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I remember them rolling with him early on as a sophomore, and the coaches had a vision, and he really came through and was even better than maybe they expected. It was kind of fun to see that development from him throughout his career. By the time he was a senior, it was a great a fantastic success story for the program. So a good guy running your team for sure. Should we move on to my next one then?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go wide receiver for this next go around, and you know what? This is a little tricky for me. I'm probably going to go with bias because I got to see it up close in some Wahpeton games maybe. So it kind of looms a little larger in my brain. Maybe doesn't have as good of stats, but I'm going to go with a guy who is a really good jump ball target. We got Blaze Irwin, one of the best basketball players in school history, just also happens to be one of the best wide receivers in school history.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about, if you want to do his run through his stats for me, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Blaze is one of those guys that you see it a lot at the NFL level, whether it's a tight end or a wide receiver. They were high-level basketball players, big-time jumpers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a dunker, went to NDSU to play basketball. I believe he went to Minot State. So big-time hooper who could really jump up and get the ball, and his numbers reflect that. Regular season his senior year, 679 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. So big-time touchdown numbers. He had 5 catches for 139 yards and a touchdown in both 2-point conversions in a 28-6 win over Breckenridge. And another legacy thing here, he helped his class go 4-0 in the border battle against Breckenridge. And when you're sitting down with your buddies who maybe you were enemies against in Breckenridge at the time, you can always rub that in their face down the road. So Blaze Irwin was king of the Twin Town rivalry, and 8-1 regular season record as a senior, number 3 state ranking, number 1 target out wide. And that's a great pick to have there to kind of build your receiving core.
And Blaze was and also up the team to the state title game as a junior. And the third receiver on that team, because there's another guy that might get mentioned later here. Third receiver on that team, actually my quarterback, Carson Zark, before he moved over, because Jack Christensen was his QB when they made that run to the state title round. And Jack Christensen did get some consideration for me as well. QBs who get the wins obviously are going to, kind of get put to the top of the list a little better. So he did get some consideration for getting the team to the state title game, but Carson Zark, player of the year, and like I said, just video game stats, so hard to pick against that. But
yeah, we talk about pro comparisons for these players. If Ryan Smith is the Bo Jackson of Wahpeton and Trey Mauk is maybe the Barry Sanders with the elusiveness, then Blaze Irwin is the Randy Moss, the way he put together the dunking on the basketball court and the vertical threat on the football field.
I love it. But okay, I'm not trying to say this one better, because that is a good comparison, but I'm saying if you actually look at him, kind of like a Jordy Nelson.
Oh yeah.
This is
absolutely.
So like, and actually look genuinely like Jordy Nelson is why I throw it out. Maybe a Mike Evans or something like that, is what I was thinking.
I was kind of looking for a guy who had more Pro Bowls than Jordy Nelson, but Jordy Nelson in his prime was, hard to beat on a fantasy team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard for me to like a Packer player, but I always found a soft spot for Jordy Nelson for some reason. But if you want to go on to your pick, Robert.
So for my next pick here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my running back.
Your RB2.
Actually, I'm going to go with my wide receiver here. I'm going to go with my wide receiver so that I don't lose the top 2 guys and give them right to you. So especially
saw me jumping in the mid there.
Especially if we're talking about a PPR format here, I would be doomed. But I'm going to go with Caden Kappas, who I think production alone, probably the greatest Wahpeton wide receiver of all time. And of course, this is just for fun, up for debate. But Caden Kappas, school records with 29 career receiving touchdowns, 879 receiving yards, and 19 touchdowns in a single season as a junior. 19 touchdowns in a single season, that's unheard of anywhere in the nation, unless maybe you're in Texas. And of course, he had 4 3-touchdown games receiving. I mean, we've maybe seen it rushing with Ryan Smith. Probably never going to see it again receiving. So he had 12 of those touchdowns in 4 games. So I'll take Caden Kappas to build my receiver core, and he would have had 30 career touchdowns. He got one in the end zone against Turtle Mountain, and the cornerback took it away from him after they were out of bounds on the ground, and they called it an interception. So we'll throw that highlight in here. So he would have 30, but I think 29. I think he'll be pretty happy with this. So for Caden, for me, it was a guy like Schaefer who could make all the throws. Kappas could run all the routes, and he's a student of the game, floor general in basketball. Did everything he took to help the team win. In baseball, he played shortstop. He batted leadoff. He would get hit by pitch, I believe, about 28 times his final year. So he did everything he needed to do as far as studying and as far as doing the dirty work. And on the football field, that was with the route running. I mean, sometimes he would freelance it. If the play wasn't there, he was on the same page as Schaefer. And with his high IQ, he got on the same page with his quarterback, and there was no game planning. He was matchup proof because he had a full route tree, and watching him go up in the end zone for a guy who we would say didn't have the vertical in basketball, didn't have the height of Blaze Irwin, he was just as good, if not better, at going up and getting those balls in the end zone. Again, I just got to say it again, 19 touchdowns in one season, 29 in a career for Caden Kappas. He also had 74.5 tackles his junior year, third in the EDC.
I remember covering that season opener that year. Once again, it was a rebuilding year, but he was one of the guys that they were kind of rallying around, and it was kind of fun to see him break out. And anything else for Caden, or should we move on to the next one?
29 career touchdowns, just one more time, and 19 in one season. If you didn't get that,
okay. All right, and for this next one, I'm going to fill out my other running back one, and this one is a little tricky for me because I didn't follow this Wahpeton team a lot. I was in like 5th or 6th grade, but I'm just going off of, resume, racked up some rushing records at the time, which later got broken, I know, and then also helped the team to the state semifinals when they were playing in North Dakota's top class. And I'm going with Kyle Wetzel, a 2007 grad. I might be doing the math on that wrong, or 2006. But anyways, fantastic senior year and was really good as a junior as well. And Mr. Mike McCall, his old head coach, is going to have some good things to say about him from an interview we had earlier. But
that 2006 team had me convinced Breck was going winless on the year. When I walked away from that one, I was like, oh boy. Well, I don't know. And Kyle Wetzel was amazing that year.
Yeah. So you had Kramer, Cook, and Wetzel.
So you're looking at the backfields collectively.
Yep.
Like which one you'd take.
Well, I mean, when you look at 3 running backs, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I could sit here and tell you that I could look in 2006. Before that, I would have given the ball to Wetzel or Cook equal times.
Okay.
I mean, I
that was actually my next question. Your favorite 1-2 punch?
They both ran hard. They both ran well. I don't know. Kyle probably got over the year, got more carries.
Mm-hmm. I was actually looking at some archives. He had set actually a couple records. I think one was a single game record.
So, until Ryan Smith came around.
Yep, exactly. And then Ryan probably got the next 5.
And
Trey.
But I mean, they were consistent. They didn't turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. They took care of the football. And but that backfield that we had in 2006 was good.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
A very complete running back for them during the Wing T era. And, a lot of 200-yard games, including one against Breckenridge's senior year as well. And we know Bryce pretty well. So we know Bryce, obviously a solid running back for Wahpeton as well. But Kyle Wetzel, a lot of guys who later played running back for Wahpeton were like, oh, we just want to be as good as Kyle Wetzel.
Yeah, Wetzel family, just great athletes. Brandon Wetzel, pretty good athlete as well. And I got to play with Bryce Wetzel in 5th or 6th grade football on the green team. He was our offense. I know we're talking about Kyle, but Bryce was our offense. And, I didn't get to see it a whole lot because I was usually on the sideline sucking wind after getting my the air knocked out of me by the Schreiner brothers from Breck. But Bryce was a great athlete. And Kyle was, like you said, probably 1A before Ryan Smith came around. Mm-hmm. And, what do? He's a 99 overall Madden player, Ryan Smith. And if that's the case, then Kyle Wetzel probably in that 95 to 97 range. So not too bad.
Just the slate of running backs during that tenure is just absurd.
Ridiculous.
With Kyle Wetzel immediately being followed up by Jeremy Braun as well, who's getting some consideration potentially for my flex spot. We'll see if I go with him, but maybe not. But we got to fill out Robert's roster first as well. If you want to go on to your pick.
Yeah, I'll take care of my RB2 here. I waited a little bit because when you got Trayton Mauk leading the offense, you get plenty of points there. And I'll take Zane Medhog. So Zane, great high school career, right? I don't think anybody knew what was going to happen next for Zane. He went to MSUM, and you're like, good for you to go play college football. Hopefully you carve out a role in the backfield, maybe a committee approach. Didn't really profile as an elite college player. Well, he goes into MSUM. He racks up 1,736 all-purpose yards, 21 touchdowns in 2014, which led to him being named to the NFL Draft Diamonds Small School NFL Prospects list. So the kid was getting some pro looks, and he became the school's first 1,000-yard rusher since 1999 in 2014, an All-American talent. And like I said, we've seen guys go to the college level, but we don't see very many of them be the best player at the college level. And that's what we saw with Ryan Smith, and that's what we saw with Zane Medog. So Zane Medog's probably like, hey, if Ryan can do it, I can go do it too. And talk about just an incredible trajectory for a player. So Zane Medog, if he had maybe a COVID year and could come back from MSUM and play again at Wahpeton, he probably would have put up Ryan Smith numbers. But Zane Medog, just so impressed with obviously all the work it had to take to go in and be 1,000-yard rusher for the MSUM Dragons. And I think maybe I shouldn't be using his college stuff here, but people just got to know, if you're not in tune with Zane Medog's college career, go hit that MSUM bio page, and that's going to make Wahpeton really proud.
You know, high school stats obviously aren't going to bolster how we look at you as a college player, but we can work this backwards, where your college career can genuinely affect how we look back at you as a high school player. We're like, oh my goodness, like we didn't realize like how good you really were. So his sophomore year, it's got Ryan Smith on his team. So good luck getting any carries there. Actually got to play on their defense a good amount. He kind of was their Mr. Fix-It guy. They just plugged wherever there was an injury. But then his junior year, that was kind of the transition period. Coach Dawkin took over, and that year they were just snake bit, injuries and kind of a tough transition. And Bryce was the starting running back at the time, and Zane kind of actually was like playing receiver, if I remember correctly, at one point at the end of the year. But then his senior year, going into the year, they knew this was going to be his feature back year. Had a couple good backups too, who also got some consideration from me for Tyler Gribbentrog and Brock Lincoln behind him. But his senior year, he was a monster, and I believe a state runner-up too, and beat me in the WAPREC game, maybe the greatest accomplishment of his sports career. So good for him, I guess. You know what? I might take my flex now and loop back for my wide receiver, because I'm going to get Aaron Dykey as my flex. Aaron Dykey was a player of the year his senior year, and he's another guy like Zane where senior year is pretty much where that's where a bulk of it's going to be, because his sophomore year, he had some, other guys in front of him. And then his junior year, offense kind of struggled that year, just getting the ground game going at all. And then I believe he got injured by the end of the year. So his senior year, it was another one where it was like, this is going to be your feature back year. And oh boy, was he. They were calling him AD, obviously, because of his initials, but I thought they were doing it because obviously that was Adrian Peterson's nickname during games, because that's what he looked like. He was, I think he ended up with some pretty good numbers his senior year, if you want to throw that in there. And also the Player of the Year award.
Yeah, Dykey ran for 1,739 yards, 21 touchdowns in 2017, Class 2A Player of the Year. And we just listed our top 15 Breck running backs of the last 20 years. Steven Erlinson went for 1,825 touchdowns. This is nearly a carbon copy of that season, throwing a couple receiving touchdowns for Dykey that year too. And same thing with Mauk's senior season. So definitely an elite level talent. We're talking about the greatest running back from Breck all time. You could copy and paste his stats, and you have Aaron Dykey's senior season as well. And there's something to be said about reaching your full potential as a season, not what could have been. And he certainly did that. And winning Player of the Year in Class 2A, no small feat.
Yeah, and had a really good offensive line in front of him that year, and his physicality is what set him apart. His speed was good. There's a lot of guys on here where their speed is like their top thing, but I think that for Aaron, that he was just like a load through a crazy stiff arm. He would just spike guys into the ground, it seemed like. But he did have good speed. That's not me saying he wasn't a fast running back, because he would leave guys behind, but more so his strength is what usually stood out for me. Did get injured in the playoff game, which ended up sinking them, unfortunately, that year. That was very tough to see them lose that game in Devils Lake, but that definitely doesn't take away from a really, really, really good senior year.
I'm set on my running backs. I think you're set on your running backs. I mean, you got 3 of them, so you went running back heavy in here. So I'm going to go in and grab a wide receiver here, and this one might surprise some people. Maybe not a 4-year star player, but I'd be remiss if I left the guy off the list who has more receiving yards in a single game than any other Husky in history, and that is Jackson DeVries. So what a big-time player last year, and one of Wahpeton's best seasons in the last 10, 15 years. And as a senior in 2024, Jackson DeVries had 197 receiving yards at West Fargo Horace.
Trying to tack another score on before they head home tonight. 1st and 10 from the Huskies 42. Kubla out of the shotgun. Quick pass to DeVries, and he's going to add to his total. And he's putting on the moves. Cuts up the seam. Oh my goodness, Jackson DeVries. Dipsy-doos past the Hawks defense, and he's going to score a 58-yard touchdown. Just a little pass in the soft spot of the zone over the middle, and DeVries does the rest.
West Fargo Horace won the state championship, so he put up almost a 200 spot on the Hawks, and that broke Isaac Erickson's mark of 173 yards that was set in 2015. And a big play guy. He did it all, yards after catch, and this is really the first receiver on our draft list today that is basically doing it primarily with his legs. 39 catches, 710 yards, most of those in the soft spots underneath on the defense, and he was a human joystick when he get out there. I remember I said left, right, left, up the middle, and just back and forth like you're just smashing the juke button on your PlayStation controller. So you do the math on the yards per catch, 39 catches, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns in the state semifinals, so his last ride as a Husky was pretty impressive against undefeated Grand Forks Red River. He had a couple kick return touchdowns. So his playoff run last season, 80-plus yard kick return touchdown at Valley City, 2 touchdown grabs at Red River. So it didn't matter if he was home or away, he was showing out. So Jackson DeVries makes the list for me. When you're in the record books, it's hard not to put you on my fantasy lineup.
Funny enough, I actually go off of football whenever I have to tell someone how good Jackson is, because like I had a couple of people who were just like, well, is he really that good? He had like a couple of good games, but they kind of wanted some more detail during the season. I was like, I mean, he's running better time than Trey in the 100, like in track. Like, that's all you need to know. Like, if you're wondering why they're getting him the ball, he is like on a track. I'm not saying on a football field, but on a track, he's faster than Trey, and Trey is the fastest guy in your football field. So what are you complaining about? You know, it wasn't a complaint, obviously. It was more so just me being like, okay, this makes sense to me. I hope that makes sense to you. So.
Yeah, it was the shifting of gears on the football field was incredible for me. You talk about speed, agility. For Jackson DeVries, the word I would use is acceleration, because they wouldn't target him deep down the field. They would target him on a little curl route, and it's like there's nothing there. Well, by the time the defense got up to press him, he was gone. So it looked like the defense had an advantage, but he was able just to hit another gear. And as far as acceleration goes, like you said, right up there with the fastest players like Trayton Mauk. And for me, that was fun watching him stop and go like that. You don't see a lot of players who can just put their cleats in the turf and find another speed as good as Jackson DeVries did. And 197 yards in a single game, maybe another record that's going to stand for a really long time at Wahpeton High.
Torrey Ulick is almost who I went with here, but I'm unfortunately going to keep my core nucleus together of my wide receiver and my wide receivers and my QB. I'm going with Cameron McNary. Granted, he had Jack Christensen as his QB. But you guys,
NDSCS Wildcat.
Yep. Cam had a good career. Cameron McNary, his senior year, they got to the state title game. Had a really dynamic offense. Kind of maybe the first real like actual passing attack from Wahpeton, like a really good one. With Jack Christensen once again throwing it to Cameron McNary as well as Blaze Irwin. That trifecta was fantastic. Plus Carson Zarek in the slot as well. So, but Cam, I got to see him on the baseball field as well. So I got to see he was no slouch running the outfield, how fast he was, but also a very good physically strong kid as well. Pretty good wrestler. You usually don't see the wide receivers who are also wrestlers, kind of weird, but I had to make sure to show Cam some love because I was really impressed by his senior year for sure.
Yeah, physical wide receiver too. So where we're looking at the other wideouts here, you talk about Blaze Irwin being more of a vertical type guy, Kappas being more of a high IQ route running maestro, and then we got Jackson DeVries being your joystick stop and start speedster, and now we get McNary in there who's just got the physical ability to shed a D-back. So we're kind of getting the whole array of different wide receivers on this list.
Gotcha.
And it's good to have a Wildcat on the list too.
Oh, for sure. Got to get the local product. And tell me who are you going to roll with for your flex to round out your offense?
So for my flex,
skill position guys,
I'm going to stay recent years here because I've gotten a good front row seat on KBMW News Live YouTube for these games. And I'm going to go with Braden Steffens. So really only one big year so far. Last year's junior year, all-state talent. And last year, Steffens went for 47 catches, 558, and 7 touchdowns. He had one of the most incredible catches I've ever seen at any level, his Odell Beckham Jr. catch against Grand Forks Central.
First and goal from the 10. Shotgun formation. Kubala's going to pass. Little pump fake. Going for the back end zone to Steffens. Oh, my goodness. Odell Beckham. Shades of OBJ. One-handed grab for Braden Steffens. That is single-handedly the best catch I've seen in a high school football game. Sports Center top 10 stuff for Braden Steffens. And it's going crazy up here in the press box. Even more so down there in the stadium seats. Braden Steffens with a highlight reel touchdown. My goodness. That was a phenomenal one-handed catch. It's like the kid had stickum on his gloves way in the back of the end zone. And even more impressive, airtight coverage, and he had to create some separation after that ball was in the air. What a play by Braden Steffens.
And that's before they got turf and new lights at Frank Verton. So the end zone is black. It's a black hole in the end zone. So you got to see a dark brown football on a fade route coming in, and he was able to catch it one-handed in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. We'll throw that highlight in here, but it is one of the best catches you'll ever see on a football field. And he also had a game-winning catch as a junior to help them defeat Valley City 28-21. So All-State, a game winner, one of the best highlight catches, of course, a productive year. And then this year, he opens the season with a backup sophomore quarterback. All the defensive pressure, eyes focused on Steffens. He goes 5 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And if you think there's not enough here to make the all 2-decade team here for Wahpeton, just check back with me at the end of Braden's senior season, and you might change your mind.
Yeah, and also with the context, they haven't been thrown a lot over the last 20 years. So, for the receivers, it gets a little easier because we usually only.
And it gets a little juicier in the passing game when Wade Gilbertson comes over. That guy's a cowboy with the offense. He likes to be shooting dual pistols and throwing the ball all over the field. So wideouts have really been spoiled. And man, Wahpeton football is fun to watch. You go to a Breck game, and if you like smash mouth football and you like running it up the gut, and they've been very effective at it for many years, that's maybe your style. But if you like a good spread offense where they're going to take some shots, you're going to want to head over to Wahpeton and watch Wade Gilbertson's team ball out.
Yep, and that was a Coach Dawkins special as well, running the spread with, got to show Kolzark some love, the OC and Carson's brother. They had quite the offense going back then, and almost got a reputation for running the scores up on teams because they were just that dynamic. But I don't think they had meant to. But as far as Wahpeton goes, we have the wing T era, and before that, where you get all the incredible running backs. You can focus on that. You can focus on the spread era where these wide receivers have really come on. And who have been in the middle of all of this, not really getting any credit? Tight ends. So that is why the tight ends probably got left last for us. And you want me to go first? Yeah, I'll take it. I am up next. And I'm going to go with mine. That's another one that we're going to have to get some, some other insights from some folks because I'm just going off the eye test. One of the scariest.
Or we could just look at him. Yeah.
I one of the scariest humans I saw when I was a young kid going to a WAP game. And I saw Pat Coyne run out there to play against Cowboys, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is a large man." And Pat Coyne, a little infamous for apparently having the most eye black in the nation, evidently, or something like that.
Yeah, we got to share it with you folks because Pat Coyne liked to take the field looking like John Randall, just covered in eye black. And Daily News actually did a piece on this because prior to one of the games, Pat was forced to remove most of his eye black by the officials. They said it was too much. And Daily News at the time, Michael Chirac reporting, kind of took issue with that. And here's what the lead to their story said. Obvious that Coyne is quite intimidating, but anyone who's ever stood next to him while he's wearing a helmet and a purple jersey knows it has nothing to do with the copious amounts of eye black. Coyne would be intimidating if he had flowers and butterflies painted on his face. So the Daily News came up with a few additional rules that they proposed to the North Dakota High School Activities Association to reduce the amount of intimidation in football. And they wanted, following each game, the captains from both teams must sit down for tea and crumpets to discuss their feelings about the game, make sure no one was emotionally injured, specifically by Pat's eye black. All players will be required to smile at all times, and there will be a 15-yard personal foul penalty assessed to any player seen making mean or scary faces. So those are just a couple rules. And now if you wrote an article like this, NDHSAA might revoke your rights to broadcast. I remember I posted a video a couple of years ago of a pretty vicious targeting hit on Trayton Mauck. I'm not saying it was intentional, but definitely targeting and variety, a player safety issue. And NDHSAA told me that no pointing out issues in the game like that. So Michael Chirac shooting his shot. Big fan of Pat Coyne's eye black. And I'll tell you something about Pat Coyne. Like you said, the guy is just quite intimidating. He plays men's league softball, and a few years back, he played shortstop. So imagine seeing a guy built like a brick house, 260 pounds, playing up the middle of the infield, and where he lacked range because he's just that size, it looked like Brock Lesnar out there, and he could knock down a ball like Happy Gilmore standing in the batting cage getting ready for hockey season. So big dude, big presence. I'm sure he was a massive benefit in the blocking game as a tight end. And it's too bad the eye black era had to come to an end because he definitely had a signature look.
And we got to fill out yours now with your tight end.
And my tight end here, I'm going to go with Luke Bumgardner. Again, tight ends, just the way it is, don't typically play a massive role in high school football. But Luke Bumgardner was always a threat to score. So having a red zone threat to catch some passes at tight end just adds to the receiving core. And that's why he makes my list, where maybe Pat Coyne could pop the defense and move the run game a little bit. Luke Bumgardner could take some pressure off the outside receivers and catch a few passes deep in the red zone.
Luke Bumgardner would play tight end and helped us out up front. And the tight ends in our offense and wide receivers, they had to block because there was no, we maybe threw the ball 3 or 4 times a game. And other than that, it was pounded up front. Quarterback had to be able to block and lead up the hole too. So
what's it like having the conversation with those guys where you have to kind of give them that reality check when you're maybe chatting with just the position group specifically, or maybe if that's something that's not even a conversation that needs to be had? Because I know that I never played line. I was always a skill guy, so I never had to kind of have it explained to me like, buddy, you're not really going to get the glory here, but we got to win this game with you.
It was never really a discussion. The kids, we were fortunate enough. We had kids that wanted to win, and they would do what they needed to do to try and do that, to get that success. I think our wide receivers, and one of the things I want to say that I felt we were noted for was our physicality. We were going to show up. We were going to play hard-nosed, smash-mouth football. And if we don't win the game at the end of the night, you're going to know you were in a fight. And that was the mentality we had. And our wide receivers knew that they might only get 3 or 4 opportunities a night, but they were going to get to hit people every play. And a lot of our kids really strived on that. And so there was never from anything that needed to be done. How many teams, have their quarterback pitch the ball and then lead up the hole? And our quarterbacks loved it. And you didn't necessarily have to hit anybody. You just had to get in somebody's way. And I don't think there were ever kids that we had to convince to do their job. They might not have always liked it, like you said, because, they want to catch passes. They want to be, those things. But that's not what the offense called for, and they understood that, and they did what they needed to do.
An honorable mention for me, played with Luke Bumgardner, would be Sam Weiss, who was a monster at linebacker. And both of these guys, they get a little boost here because they decided that they would take the risk on their joints and play semi-pro football when they were maybe a little bit past their prime. I'll leave that up for them to decide. But they played for the Midwest Premier Football League Championship with the Fargo Invaders in 2014. And they won that game 35-14 over the West Central Broncos. They were both all-stars in the semi-pro league, so we'll put some highlights from that game. But I think you got to love football. If you're going to go out on your free time, you got a day job, you got responsibilities, you got to get up for in the morning, but you're going out and playing semi-pro football. Personally, I think that's pretty cool. But Luke Bumgardner is my tight end because he's a tight end with hands, and I think that's really important.
I remember always being impressed by Luke because it seemed like they would only throw like 4 times a game, but he would still find a way to, go on a post corner route and get sneak one in every single game, it seemed like. But so we had to make sure him some love.
Super, super, super good guy too. Super nice guy. So
I sang karaoke with Luke Bumgardner, one of my favorite memories on this planet. So,
there you go.
Fantastic human being. But looks like we got our offenses rounded out.